the new rules did pass, and there's nothing that is making defense easier or better, but we do know that there has been some changes made. Replay assist going to be better for all parties, we assume.
Yes.
Especially as the people that are doing that are getting younger and more used to what they're looking at and better with the technology and quicker and able to kind of assist, which we saw happen last year a lot, where a flag would be thrown, then a ref would get a message almost immediately and be like, oh, nope, we're picking it up, we're moving along after a replay assist or further assist or whatever they would say. Love that. Touchbacks to the 35, we're going to get more returns. Okay, people aren't going to want to give that up. Love that. Regular season overtime rules being the same as the playoff overtime rules, as opposed to being going in forever. It does have a 10-minute limit. And then the tush push has been tush pushed back to May for their next date in gathering. What are your thoughts on it all, AJ? What's your big takeaway from what has been voted by the competition committee down in beautiful Florida?
I think this is a little bit of what we expected. Obviously, the defensive holding and illegal contact, I did not expect that to get through on this one. I thought the moving the kickoff touchback to the 35, I thought it was maybe 50-50 chance, just because I feel like hasn't the NFL promoted as a big success, like the new weird-looking kickoff to where we have, 1,800 more plays or whatever they call it, and we have a lot less concussions, however you test that?
Yeah, and I think the NFL was very pumped with it, and I think at the end of the season is really when they were flexing. You know, they're like, this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted it to be a dynamic play being added back in, and Turpin obviously goes bananas. I think he signed a deal, too. Congrats to him. Obviously, he comes from the XFL, and then he has a big moment like that with a new return. I think they're even trying to make it easier for returns. I think it's like 6-3-2 now as opposed to 7, whatever it was in the past. So I think they're adding another person. And I think allegedly, Roger Goodell was pushing for it to go to the 35 because I had an opportunity to talk to Commissioner Goodell about the new kickoff rules. I think it was about midway through the season, I think, midway through the year. And he was pumped with it. He thought the opportunities were great. And then I immediately go, got to move that to the 35 though to kind of scare more people. And his immediate thought and his response was, a lot of people have said that in the special teams world. So kind of an NFL thing to test it, see how it works. Are we going to keep it? Are we going to critique it a little bit? Or are we going to get rid of this? We've seen things get tested and then tossed after one season. Now I think they saw it. They saw the upside of it, especially at the end of the year last year when there was more returns and they want to create more. I love it. It's good for special teams. It is great for special teams coaches. It's great for special teams players. I'm happy to see that they think they got it right, is what I'm thinking, AJ, from watching them kind of adjust this rule.
Yeah, and it is going to absolutely, force more returns, and we love seeing returns. It's something that people, I guess, take for granted, and it's like an afterthought when you're like a casual football fan. But if you're there and you're on the staff or you're on the team, you know absolutely how big of a deal these things are.
Yeah, if you take one to the crib, you're probably going to win the game. Yeah, like that is just how it goes. If you get one out to the 50. The offense is jogging on the field. I mean, that's a whole...
Force a fumble. Imagine forcing a fumble. If you're covering the first kickoff of a game and you force a fumble or something and get that thing.
Oh,
huge.
Game over.
Yeah.
You used to be able to set the tone with the,
Yeah. Locking arms.
Big
Wedge.
That was...
Yep.
I'm a wedge buster.
Kamikaze.
What is your job?
Crazy.
I bust wedges. What are wedges? Well, it's 3 professional athletes linking their arms together with a returner behind them, and they are running full speed at me. I am running full speed at them.
You got to put a descriptor on those 3 athletes, too.
You're right. Linebackers, defensive linemen, potentially an offensive lineman.
Whoa.
Could be anywhere from 240 pounds to 340 pounds. And they can run. They can move. They will be moving in your direction. And they are trying to bust you. So you're trying to bust them. They're trying to bust you. It's a game of Red Rover, but really you're outnumbered every time. And you're just going to do one of these. And if you can take up 2, even better. So you just do what you got. That's what the kickoff used to be. And you could set a tone. Colts had a guy, I think he was a defensive lineman. He was before I got there. Cracked 4 helmets or something like that. Cracked 4 helmets. He was a
valuable play. That is a valuable player to that squad because the coach can show film of that dude every week, too. You talk about laying down the line. Check this guy out. He's half brain dead already.
Whoa.
But guys take pride in their job is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think he cracked 3 or 4 helmets or whatever. And they'll show it on NFL films as one of the highlights. Like, he was I think he was a 5. So he's right down the middle of the field to the ball. And it It was go time, and he exploded through people's heads. And I've seen the clips. I wish that guy was on my team. It was. You should have seen what it was like when I forget his name. I wish I knew his name.
Was his last name Reed?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, lineman 95, maybe.
Big helmet.
Yo, yes,
big helmet.
Taller.
So fast, just so fast. Can't do that anymore now because everybody's lining up next to each other. Which is why when the touchbacks happen, these looked worse than the touchbacks of the old because people are just standing at the 30, touchback, all right, jog off the field.
Yep.
And now, I guess there was chatter about moving the kickoff back 5 yards, the kicker, back 5 yards. Instead of moving, the touchback to the 35, you can move it back, kickoff back to the 30, which is what it used to be back in the day. I still think there'll be kickers that could get it out if they wanted to, but that would certainly force some of the weaker-legged kickers to probably put up more balls that'll be returned. How do you feel, though, legitimately about the defensive thing not passing? Do you think that's just forever now? Amen?
Not surprised at all. And as the numbers continue to go up, as quarterbacks continue to make money, betting, people want fantasy, like all of the things that, are offensive in the league. So you're not going to make it tougher for the offense. I think that's why even the tush push, partly why that's kind of been tabled. But I had zero expectations for the defensive stuff to be passed, just like AJ.
Yeah,
it's not happening.
The other one that's interesting is the seeding because the NFL isn't the only sport talking about the changing of the seeding. I know the NBA they're already talking about just doing 1 through 16. 8 teams on the East, 8 teams on the West, and then completely reseeding them and doing just a 1 through 16 NBA playoff. So this one feels like it could actually happen where instead of making those teams that do go 14-3 go on the road, that maybe they still get a home game.
I'll tell you, I don't know. Playoffs are so successful.
Yeah,
you got to remember, end of day, what are we? We're getting 60 million views. 50 million viewers for these playoff games. With the way the NFL operates, that would be a drastic change with that move.
Would it bring more viewers? Would it bring more fans? That's the question.
So.
Maybe it does. Maybe it does because the games get better and the people get rewarded. In my head, I'm not saying I'm against this at all. I'm not saying I'm against it. What I'm saying is the NFL very rarely will just make a drastic change to something, especially if it's having massive success, which the playoff numbers for football are absurd. I mean, the NFL numbers are bananas.
I heard Treg say yesterday on his last episode of Good Morning Football how much the owners love if you just win your division. Yeah, you get a home playoff game. You get all those ticket money. You get all those concessions. Blah blah blah. And then you yesterday said it basically the same thing, but not from the owner's perspective, but more of a player's perspective. Is you winning the division means something, and that's awesome. Whether you have the 5th best record in that conference or not, win the division. As someone we come from a division that means something. If you have rivalries within the division, I love that winning division means getting a home field.
Yeah, hanging a banner. Yeah, it means something. Yeah, it means something. Right?
Yeah, I guess not every stadium has division championship banners, but I mean, you still get in, you still get the hat, you still get in the playoffs, and we, of course, winning a division championship means something. But how do we talk about it on here? Only one team is happy, so sure, it definitely means something to the players in the ownership and everything like that, absolutely. And they're still going to the playoffs. It feels as though having, being in a division where there's only been one great team with the Bills, maybe that's why I feel this way. But when you are in these very difficult divisions, the NFC North, the AFC North, it does feel like, hey, why, if we win 12 games and, the Ravens or the Steelers win 13 or the Patriots win 10 games and the Ravens and the Steelers win 12 or 13 games, even looking at that, it's if I was a Ravens or Steelers fan, it's shit, I would want that home playoff.
The Lions pitching this is strictly because Week 18 game against the Vikings, they both have 13 or 14 wins, whatever it was at the time, 13 wins, and they were going to have to go from seed 1, which is permanent home field advantage throughout the playoffs, to seed 5, which is not even a home playoff game. Lions win that game, and they still are the ones making the pitch because I think they're saying, that was bullshit for the Vikings, because if they would have lost that game, they would have been so we're the best team, second best team in the entire league, and now we're a 5 seed. We got to go on the road through the entirety of it all. It's a fascinating.
Just had their best regular season in franchise history, and they might have been a wild card team.
I don't see it changing.
Me neither.
They had to play. It was great for the NFL. Like, they had to play their guys. Like, that was basically an extra playoff game we got from 2 of the best teams in the NFL with like you said, that four spots in the playoffs on the line, going from a 1 to a 5. So I don't see it changing. It's just it's too big a part of the NFL and what the culture is in the NFL.
Yeah, not saying it's not a good idea.
Yeah,
like not saying it's not a good idea and thinking that it would work out, but it's like the way the NFL operates is they'll be like, "What? So you're telling me we pull up the numbers? How many did we get wild card weekend? How many viewers did we have? Okay, how many upsets has there been in wild card weekend? How many teams have gone on a run? It feels like the people that are voting in the room wouldn't want to make that big of a rattle to their baby. I mean, they're selling playoff games now directly to streaming platforms, and the numbers and the amount of money they're getting is just gigantic. So, not saying they shouldn't change it, but I don't think that one's ever going to get changed.
No, and like with the NBA, it makes a little bit more sense because like sometimes you see like, well, like the Western Conference has 11 teams that should be in the playoffs, and like the East is really bad, so like that makes sense. But typically in the NFL, it's pretty evened out with how good the teams are in the AFC and the NFC. There might be one division, like, we talked about the NFC South the last couple of years. It's like, whoever gets in here is kind of screwing over one of these teams. But
AFC South.
Yeah. Whoa. The AFC South is back.
The AFC South too. But the Texans have been pretty solid. But very rarely is it like, the NFC has 8 teams that have 10 wins and the AFC only has 3 teams that have 10 wins, and a couple of those should get in. Like, it is typically pretty evenly balanced between the 2 divisions.
Coming out of the league meetings also, we have new flex rules for Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
Tom Pelissero, the Era, reported that the NFL owners passed a resolution allowing the league to flex Sunday games to Thursday night with 21 days notice. Need 3 weeks if you're going to cut off 3 days of my weekend. No team can do more than 2 short week games on Thursday night, and there can be no more than 2 of these games flexed from Sunday to Thursday. I assume there's a certain restrictor too, like past week 7 or past week 8, like they have with Sunday Night Football. They obviously did this last year one time, I believe, and now they're going to be able to really do it another time, and now they're shortening the amount of time from 28 days to 21 days for the notice to go on a short week. I like any time these primetime games have the flexibility to move a shite game that we all see coming to a good game or a great game if it is available. There's always going to be Cinderella teams that we don't know are going to be good. So whenever the schedule makers piece together these primetime games and which week who is playing what, they have no idea that the Washington Commanders might be one of the teams that everybody on earth will want to watch. A couple years ago, the Cincinnati Bengals go from a 4-win team to a team that ends up going to the Super Bowl. So they're not scheduled to be in a lot of primetime games before the season starts, but all of a sudden, wait a minute, this team should be on primetime TV. I wish networks would pull the trigger more on flexing games. A lot of networks are scared to do it because they don't want to piss off any of the franchises, which are obviously all individual entities. They don't want to ruin any relationships. They don't want to piss off any fan bases either, because if you say no to like a New York team is scheduled for 3 straight primetime games. They suck. They're not good. We're forced to watch them, but a lot of networks are scared to tell their fan base, which is gigantic, even though their team stinks, that they're not worthy of being on primetime. We're going elsewhere. So I think if it becomes much more common, networks will be much more comfortable making the decision to do it. So I like that they're trying to make it easier for primetime games to get better for all of us, AJ.
Yeah, I like that they're doing it. I think they're going to continue to find creative ways to get all the best games, like as the season goes, in prime time. But think about how valuable these are when the whole schedule release comes out. That's a big deal. Now the NFL does a great job of making that a huge deal. But you sit there and you highlight how many primetime games each team has. So yeah, of course you don't want those taken away from you, but you should also say, hey, if you're one of these terrible teams and you don't have any primetime games, you might get flexed into 2 primetime games if you take care of business early in the year.
Especially with what the ratings are later in the year. Ratings are bigger at the end of the year, so you can earn your way into it. So you're right. I think it does give the teams that are projected to be shite an opportunity, to earn their way into primetime. And that's how primetime should be treated, by the way. when you're in these primetime games, they're doing pieces and segments. They're showcasing your team, your city, your building, your players. Like, primetime games matter, not just because people see the field, the play on the field, or get a chance to experience a fan base and everything like that, but because they're telling the story of your team every single week in different ways. So whenever the Dallas Cowboys are on, 4 straight, 5 straight weeks, I mean, how many different Dak Prescott interviews are we getting in there? How many different, conversations about the Jones family in the stadium? Like, they highlight your franchise. So not having a primetime game sucks for your business.
Oh, yeah.
Sucks for your team, sucks for your players, sucks for your business, sucks for your city. It sucks for your fans that aren't in your city because they can't see shit, unless they get NFL Plus, which is a weapon, obviously, for people that are out of their market. But it's like, I hope they make flexing more common.
Yeah.
I hope it becomes more common.